Thank you very much for inviting me and setting me yet another challenge of going through something that has been widely researched. I've got a couple of disclosures to make this. I was ambushed with that slide, sorry that I haven't written them down. I've got several research grants from various companies, and I'm a consultant to a point of care and a monitoring company. None of that has any impact on this talk. And why I'm saying this is a bit of a challenge is the fact that this has been around. Myocardial protection, myocardial perfusion has been around since the 1880s. So it's not exactly a terribly new topic. However, there have been a couple of milestones, and without these milestones, we actually wouldn't be talking about what we're talking today. Come closer, okay, sorry. We wouldn't be talking about what we're talking today. What is quite interesting is that actually since the 1990s, in the last 20 years, nothing new has happened in cardioplegia, nothing amazing new has happened. Yet a lot of us do probably have a moderate, at best, understanding of what actually happens during cardiopulmonary bypass, and for many of us it's a very welcome coffee break. Which I do agree with that concept, very much so, but it's actually also something we should need to pay a little bit of attention to, particularly also to myocardial injury, because that determines what we might do after bypass. There are three components to myocardial injury. There is the period before bypass, and that's probably where we sort of come into play, because that's the time where we need to look after the patient, where it's our duty to make sure that the patient doesn't deteriorate into a situation where we might have to institute cardiopulmonary bypass emergently, or the heart comes to any grief, or not only the heart but the kidney and many other organs come to grief. And I think that's where we as anaesthetists possibly bear more responsibility than our surgical colleagues. The injury during bypass, that's the one thing where we can't do anything about, because we have to go on bypass and we have to pledge the heart in order for a majority of operations. There's only a very small amount of operations that can be done on bypass without pledging or even without bypass. And the composition delivery of cardioplegia and the reperfusion injury after pulmonary bypass are the two components that really determine the success of that sort of period. And then there is this nebulous thing of the post-ischemic reperfusion injury, which is probably the next big step in cardioplegia and myocardial protection, where when a lot of research interest and effort is going into now to work out what is actually happening in that period, and is there something we can do about it? And I'd like to sort of unpick all of these things as we go along in the next 17 or so minutes. The determinants of ischemic injury are these four entities. It's our knowledge and our appreciation of the patient's pathology and of the patient's anatomy. Myocardial wall stress plays an enormous role. If we don't honor myocardial wall stress and don't take it seriously, we will not deliver our myocardial perfusion to where it's supposed to be, which is at the end myocyte. If we don't do that, that leads to an accumulation of metabolites and very, very unhealthy things in and around the cell, which eventually leads to the cell's demise, and with it, the patient's demise, possibly because the heart plays a very vital role, as we all know. Eventually, this event of warm ischemia, which we all dread, will occur. Either, if we're not careful enough, the patient will do it for us, and that's bad. Or it eventually happens when we put the cross clamp on. As soon as warm ischemia is instituted, is happening, we need to put these six things into place. We need to arrest the heart rapidly. The heart should be probably hypothermic. We need to prevent edema from happening and anything on the cellular level that will damage the cell, which is acidosis. Manage the calcium, that goes to this new entity of the nebulous reperfusion injury, and we need to de-stress the ventricular wall by venting the left ventricle. How do we do that practically? This is all known to all of you. These are the four main ways of delivering cardioplegia, either through the root, through the coronary sinus, directly through the ostia,